All right, good morning. I'm running really late. I didn't get to work yet, but I figure, let's talk a little bit more. We're talking about the daily devotions of the Orthodox Jew. So I want to get into. So once we are ready to daven, more or less, once we said the basic brachas, of the Nitzilas Yadayim, Elokei Neshama, Asher Yotza, Birkas Torah. Maybe we said Kriya Shema already, and then we use the bathroom as you need to do. Went to the mikveh. Ideally, one should spend some time learning Torah. According to some opinions, there are different opinions. Rashi holds you're not supposed to learn Torah before you pray. For the most part, the Hasidim hold that you should be learning for an hour before you pray. The Satmar Rav said someone who doesn't learn for at least an hour before praying is practically not Jewish. Of course, he's speaking in a hyperbole manner. I personally don't always get around to doing that. But the point is, you're supposed to wake up early and learn before davening. The Kal Rebbe Zal Gesund Sein Shlita Yeshav Fu Shleima. He tells a story. He met an old Russian Yid who he had a son-in-law learning in Kollel, and he said, "I don't understand. He wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning and learns a little bit, and then davens and learns all day." He said, "We used to wake up at 4 in the morning, learn, daven, go to work all day, and then when we had to get to work earlier, we'd get up at 3 in the morning to learn." And it's much of a different world that we live in today. However, we're not on that level anymore. So it's not necessarily saying that's what we have to do, but still, if you're able to get up and learn before davening, it's a very nice thing to do. You have to make a cheshbon that you're not losing out on the other end for lack of sleep. You have to figure out what works for you. Personally, I believe it's a good thing to learn on lunch breaks, things like that, at work. If you work for a living, if you're able to. If you're allowed to have a phone with you where you work, and you can chap Mishnayos and Chalk Yisrael or Gemara, anything, you can chap learning on your phone. There's all these wonderful apps, as I've spoken about before. We're not getting really into that much about learning in general right now, as much as learning before davening, which I mentioned. I think that's enough, although it is a very holy and great thing to learn Torah before davening. However little, however much, if you can't learn for a whole hour, if at least you devote 5 minutes or something to learning before davening, if that's how you conduct yourself. Again, there are opinions that it's better to daven before you learn. It depends. If you're davening with the minyan has a set time, and you're up before davening, you shouldn't really be doing anything else other than the things we discussed, getting ready to daven, other than learning, really, before davening. That, I think, is pretty clear. And obviously, you have to make sure you sit Birkas Torah before you get up and learn. Also, it depends how you're feeling that day. Today, I'm not feeling very well, and I had a hard time getting up in the morning, which happens more often than not, and I have to work on it. I did discuss in the previous video. So now you're ready to daven. So in the Orthodox Jewish world, and the same practice is practiced in many conservative Jewish communities as well, is to pray 3 times a day. A lot of people like to start, even people who are not so religious, might not even pray 3 times a day, but they like to go to minyan and start the day with a devotion. like that. Very similar, we see it in other religions as well, to develop a daily devotional life. You know, there are Catholics who go to Mass every day, you know, especially if you're in a bigger city where the church is open every day for Mass. And similarly, many Catholics observe a holy hour before Mass, which really is more similar in certain ways, as far as I can tell, to something like what we have Hispoidus. The Breslover Hasidim talk about how you should talk to God for an hour every day. I'm kind of doing that now, personally. When I make these videos, it's kind of recording my Hispoidus in a certain sense, but I'm not really talking to God in this way. I'm learning with other people, hopefully if someone's watching. But of course, it's known that the Breslover Hasidim say that to set aside an hour every day to just talk to God is a very big thing, and it's a very difficult thing to accomplish. It sounds so easy, just talking your regular language and whatever, and it's very difficult to actually set aside time for this, because something always going to come up, and the Breslover Hasidim say that, you know, the Satan always tries to stop us from doing that, and I am a victim of that, because I have a very hard time, even though I have time to engage in that, I have a very hard time setting aside time for Hispoidus, especially on a daily level, or even on a regularly. It's not something I'm really able to do, and I am able to do, and it's something I don't do, and I know I should do. You don't have to be a Breslover Chassid, you know, you don't have to be Jewish like Levi's Jewish rye bread. You know, it's interesting how I was reading, you know, I mentioned a lot Bishop Fulton Sheen. I had a dream about him on Shabbos, which kind of makes me uncomfortable. But in his autobiography, he was writing about, you know, his practice of holy hour, which is very similar to this. And he said, you know, one day, you know, he did a holy hour where he just slept the whole hour, and he's like, you know, all right, he's still involved in the devotion, but he should be, but he knows that the next time he should try harder, or something like that. But I don't know exactly what they do during holy hour. Are they reading scripture? Are they engaging in something else? Or are they just sitting and meditating? I don't know. By us, our meditations, generally, particularly Hispoidus meditations, should be verbalized. Although there is a concept of mental meditations in Judaism, Kabbalistic meditations and so forth, thinking about the names of God. But that can be in conjunction with verbal recitations. It doesn't necessarily have to. And actually, I'm hoping to get into it a bit. In the Siddur, there are actually many Kabbalistic meditations on the words. That if, you know, the first letters of 3 words, you know, spell out a holy name. Last letters, middle letter, whatever it is, and we have in mind these different permutations and gematrias, and they're positive mental exercises, but they also touch an emotional chord that can be transformative for our psyche and for our emotions and for our soul and our spirit. And so some people might say, instead of being involved in learning before davening, it should be Hispoidus. The Mishnah in Brachos mentions the Hasidim Harishonim, the earlier pious, saintly people who would wait an hour before the prayer and wait an hour after the prayer. Obviously, they're not just doing nothing, they're either studying or they're meditating or something, and they would pray for an hour and so forth. Some people think these might be the Essenes, most likely not. There are references in the Rishonim, I think in the Bartanura, actually, that refer to the Essenes as Nazirim, as Nazarites, as we had in last week's Parsha, yesterday's Parsha. So we don't really have time to discuss that too much, but when we pray, also before the prayers, and particularly in the Hasidic Sidurim, have certain things to say before even starting the regular liturgy that's said in most Orthodox circles. But I was talking, even those who don't have time for extra devotions, but just the basic devotion of going to minyan every day, even if it's a quick minyan, for working people, that, you're done with the minyan in 20 minutes. The devotion of going every day to minyan, the things like Maizeda, Alav Shalom, and it tends to, it's an interesting thing, is then you tend to find the retirees who get up at 6 a.m. to go to minyan every day. You would think the retirees would go to the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock minyan, and all right, it's a different world, but it's a very important, special thing if you're able to engage in something like that, to be able to go to minyan. I was looking at the my holy Zayda, the Chavas Yor, and his father, Moshe Shimshon, the Makor Chaim. They have poetry that they wrote, Zmiras, Piyutim, Slichas, Kinus, and other various poetry that they wrote, and there was one, I'd like to maybe someday translate all of this, that it said it was actually written in Ksav Ashuris, was written in the Sefer Torah script on the wall of the shul by Reb Moshe Shimshon, by the Makor Chaim, by the Mizaruv, the Heilige Zayde. And you see the type of devotion they had, and it talks about how precious it is to have the devotion of including yourself in a minyan and praying with a minyan when you're able to. And for me, it's a very difficult thing. I don't live in an area where there's always a minyan, but when you're able to, it's so special. And you should really come to appreciate how special it is to say a Menye Shmei Rabbah, to say a Kedusha Baruch Hu, and to daven Shemona Esrei with the minyan if you can, to start feel a bit tzibur and everything. It's a very wonderful, wonderful thing. All right, let's and so I guess in the next video we'll talk about. So just before we finish this, there are certain things in the Hasidic Sidurim that one can choose to add before. There's the Psach Eliyahu, which is from the introduction to the Tikkunei Zohar, and it talks about the unity of God and how, the manifestation in the world of the spheres, and that doesn't take away from the unity of God in any way, which it doesn't. It has nothing to do with God in His essence. It has to do with the creation, not with God Himself, although God is manifest in creation as well. And it's printed in many Sidurim. Some people say it Erev Shabbos, some people say it every morning before Shachris. Then you have the Tefillah Kodim L'Tefillah from the Rebbe Melech, the prayer before praying from Rebbe Elimelech from Lezhensk, the author of the Noam Elimelech. Very beautiful prayer. There are different versions of the prayer. And there are other things that people say before. There's a different piyutim, different zmiras, Ola Lakel. Some people say before, Yedid Nefesh. It depends. Some people say before Pesukei Zimra. Some people say before Brachas. Some people only say Shabbos. It's different, and these different devotions of reciting piyutim and things before prayer, and other little prayers that are attributed to different sources to say before davening and so forth. And these type of devotions are very special and good to be involved with. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and And so we talked about two different things. One is the very simple devotions of a more, we consider a more average Jew, which is still very special. That there are Jews, even conservative Jews, who go to Minyan every morning, and we would try to encourage that should be a more. It's a very nice thing to do, I think. Thank you for watching. God bless, please. And then the additional devotions of the things. And then we'll get into what these regular daily devotions are of the morning prayers, afternoon prayers, evening prayers, and so forth. All right. I guess this is a good place as any to park. I didn't bring my R with me. All right. Maybe I'll get another R.